Today I will be demonstrating how to crochet this beautiful wavy shell border. To crochet this border you will require the blanket that you are working on, some yarn that you'd like to use for the border, the corresponding crochet hook size, a tapestry needle to weave in your ends, and a pair of scissors. Let's go! In order to make things easier for myself, as you can see, I have already gone around and done a row of single crochet. Now, in order for this border to work easily, you're going to want your stitches to be a multiple of 4 along each edge. In the corners, you are going to add 1 extra single crochet, and you will see why in just a short while. To start this border, you are going to chain 1 and work single crochets into the first 4 stitches. Now, if you would like to use a taller stitch, such as a half double crochet or a double crochet, that will simply give you a wider border. So I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochets. I'm now going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm then going to go back to my first single crochet. So put my hook through that stitch and do a slip stitch to make a little ring. I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to place 7 double crochets inside that ring that I've just made. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Next, we're going to go back to the single crochet round from the previous round. So we're going to go into the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to chain 4 again. This time, instead of going into the top of that first of the 4 stitches, we're going to tip our shell forwards, and where that ring is that we were just putting our double crochets in, we're going to put our hook in, out through the gap between that shell and the 4 single crochets you've just made, and slip stitch. We're going to chain 1, and then into this new ring we're going to place 7 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So as you can see, we have these 2 overlapping shells, which is exactly the look that we're going for. So just to show you once more, as there is a difference between the first and second shells, you're going to single crochet into your next 4 stitches, like so. You're then going to chain 4. You're going to tip the previous shell forwards. You're going to place the hook through the ring, out through the little gap next to it, make a slip stitch, and then make your 7 double crochets into that ring, after you've chained 1, of course. And as you can see, we have another wave. So continue this way until you get to the corner. I shall meet you there. So as you can see, I have just finished the 7 double crochet for my last shell before this marked corner stitch. So I'm going to remove the stitch marker, and this time, instead of doing 4 single crochets, I'm going to do a single crochet, so just 1, before I then chain 4, and then work my slip stitch as normal, chain 1, and do my 7 double crochets. Once you have finished this shell, you can go back to doing your 4 single crochets per shell along the next side. And so you will repeat this process along each side and every corner until you reach the start. As you can see, I have now worked my border along the final edge, And I've even put in the very corner stitch shell. So that's the shell with one single crochet at the bottom rather than 4 that go along. The last thing I'm going to do, and I've already cut my yarn, is to fasten off. Now you might be wondering how we join this end to this end in order to continue your shell pattern going around that final corner. First thing that we're going to do is turn our work so that the wrong side is facing up and you've got this original tail from where you started. I'm just going to thread that onto a tapestry needle. Let me turn this around so you can see it a bit better. Okay, so we are now on the wrong side of the work. So here is the first shell that started your border and here is the last shell that ended your border. Now normally when you're working your way around you end up attaching it to this part here. So what we're going to do is simply to attach it to the same area using that original tail. How you do so is entirely up to you, but I'm just going to go through twice and then make a knot, and then I'm just going to weave in this tail. Trying to go through a few of the fibres rather than just underneath them all, so that it has less chance of unravelling by getting more of a grip. And I do like to go backwards and forwards at least 3 times before I cut my end. So make sure that that's not pulling there and snip it off. Now we need to turn back to the right side. If you look at one of the other corners of your blanket, you'll see obviously this is the shell before the corner, this is the corner shell, and this is the shell after the corner. But the very corner shell ends up just in front of the one after, because obviously that's where you put your single crochet. So we need to try and replicate that in our corner. So this is the end that we fastened off earlier. We're just going to thread that onto the tapestry needle and then decide exactly how we want to place it. Now we do want it to overlap a little and go through that first single crochet. So I think I'm going to attach mine just here. I don't think that's overlapped enough. So I'm going to undo that and try putting it through the next single crochet. And I think that sits better. So do play around with it until you are happy. Once you are happy, you're going to want to go through to the back of your work so that you can hide your tail much more nicely. Again, just like with the other tail, for security reasons, I am going to make a knot in my yarn rather than just weaving it in, because it does all hinge on these 2 tails. And then, like I said, weave it in at least 3 times before I chop it off. And there you have it. There is that final corner on your blanket. Now, if like me, you've got such a tension that it's sitting a bit kind of folding over, my next step is that I'm going to go and block it. I'll link to a blog post below on how I like to block. And on this occasion, I'm going to use steam blocking because of the kind of yarn that I've used. See you in the next video.